Hi, and welcome to Sitter's Baked Goods. Today we're going to be making blueberry pie. That's one of my summer pies. And we're going to start off with the pie shell. Now we're going to mix the flour, the salt, and the butter together and use rubbing in method. You're going to want cold butter. Because it's cold, we're going to dice it up to make it easier to work with. Make sure when you're rubbing it together that you use your fingertips. The more the butter melts, the less flaky your pie shell will be. There we go, we're just going to put that butter in that flour. Mix it up. You want some nice chunks of butter in there. That'll keep it flaky. And we're just going to rub it together until it looks about like this. There we go. Then we're going to add in the water and the egg. Make sure you get all of that in there. We're just going to mix this all up until it forms a nice ball. Once it's starting to come together, we're going to put it onto the table, forming it into a disc. Make sure it all sticks together. Make sure you flour your station before you start to roll out your pie. Okay. Now for this recipe, I'm going to be putting a lattice on this pie. So I'm going to take a third of the dough, put it off to the side for that. Then the rest we're going to make into a disc and start rolling it out. Now, if you see any cracks starting to form as you roll, fix them right away. They're only going to get worse as you roll it out. Now that we have it rolled out, I'm going to just put it nicely onto this rolling pin. You want it to be about a third of an inch thick, maybe slightly smaller. We're going to put the pie shell behind it and roll it nicely on top. Once it's on, we're going to make sure that it's in all the corners. There we go. Then we're going to start to cut off all the excess. Now you can see that I've missed a few spots, but don't worry. All the excess I'm going to be cutting off, I'm going to be putting into those spots. But if you do this, you got to be very careful, because the more the butter melts, the less flaky it is. Okay, so now that I'm going to fix the outside with all those extras. Any excess after that can go with the dough for the lattice. I'm going to wrap this and put this in the fridge. Again, you want that butter to stay cold. After I put that away, I'm going to also wrap that lattice dough. And make sure you wrap this good. You don't want it to dry out in the fridge. So make sure there's no dough showing. After I get this wrapped, I'm going to start onto the filling. Make sure you clean up before you leave though. Don't want to be working in too messy of a station. For the filling, we're going to put the sugar into the berries to draw out all that moisture. After about 5 to 10 minutes, it's going to be really juicy. I'm going to put all the spices and the salt into the pot. Then we're going to strain all those berries into that pot. Very careful. You don't want to make it a mess. Okay. Now we're going to lightly push down on the berries. Don't damage them. You want to have a nice looking berries when you have a finished product. As you can see, there's tons of liquid coming out. So I'm going to just let this sit here for another 10 minutes. The rest of the ingredients you're going to need is cornstarch and butter. The butter's going to give it a nice shine, and the cornstarch is going to thicken it up so that you don't have a soup in your pie. We're going to put the berries off to the side. We're going to put a little bit of the juice with the cornstarch to be able to make a slurry. We're going to go over to the stove, start boiling that juices, and mix up that slurry. Now, your slurry is going to separate if you wait too long. So make sure you stir it one last time before you're about to pour it in. Once your juices have started to boil, pour your slurry into the boiling juices. Make sure you get all the slurry in there, and then mix it up. It's going to get real thick, but make sure once you use cornstarch that it boils again. If you don't, it's going to have a starchy taste and it's going to be gross. As you can see now, it's real thick. I'm going to add that butter in for that nice, beautiful shine. After I put this butter in and it melts, then you're going to mix it back into the berries and let it cool before we put it into the pie shell. As you can see, nice and shiny, nice and thick, beautiful. Now let's turn this off. Oh, beautiful. There we go. Now let's get that nice sauce in there. And clean up your workstation as you go. It's a great habit to get yourself into. Now, once we get that sauce back into the berries, we're going to just mix it up so that's all over those berries. Once it's cooled down, we're going to pour it into our pie shell. I make a 10-inch pie, so if you're going to be making a smaller pie, adjust the recipe to your needs. Now with this extra dough, I'm going to roll out a rectangle or a square. I'm going to try and roll it out as best as I can into a square instead of a circle. There we go. Now I'm going to clean the edges. All this extra can be used, remember. So don't just throw it away. I'm just going to clean those into a nice rectangle. I'm going to mark out small strips. I'm still working on what I want for the lattice for my final design, but today we're going to test out small strips. We're going to slice them real small. Now if you're not confident with your cut, use a ruler. It'll make sure you get nice and straight and you don't get any wonky ones. Okay, now that I got definitely enough strips, probably too many, I'm going to start to put them on. Now for the lettuce, I meant to weave them, but as I started moving along, I realized I was just alternating from one side to the next, which weaved one of them, but ended up only one of them. I will be fixing this in the future. Now this doesn't look bad. It's only a nitpick, I guess you would call it. As I finish this lattice, it's going to end up like this. Now we're going to remove any excess, and then we're going to start to use our pointer finger knuckle, our thumb, and our pointer finger to start to make a nice outside edge and crimp it. Keep crimping it till it's all the way around. There we go. Now, always egg wash to make that beautiful shine. Today I'm going to be using egg yolk only, and we're going to see how that turns out. I normally use cream and egg, or a whole egg, but we'll find out what egg yolk will look like. Now, we're going to start at 400 degrees. and we're going to bake for about 20 minutes. We're going to bake on high to get that nice golden brown. Now we're going to reduce the heat to 350 and bake again for 40 minutes. That first 20 minutes will get it nice and golden brown on top, and the last 40 minutes will bake it fully through so that you don't have any raw dough. This is what the final product looks like. For this recipe, I will have to change how I do the lettuce, but overall, this recipe was a success. If you've liked this video, please like and subscribe. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. I even have my own website, and the recipe will be in the description below. Thank you, and have a nice day.